Would you like to learn about smart clothes and garments that can help you avoid falls? Our risk of losing balance and falling down increases dramatically over the age of 65, and we could fracture bones or hips, which really increases the risk of mortality. The company I bring on today has designed socks to help you restore balance and reduce the risk of falling. They also have a boot that helps heal diabetic ulcers, a knee strap for proper knee therapy post-injury, and they're even working on providing feedback within the garments. It's really cool technology. Check out this podcast with their founder. If you're looking to get thicker, fuller, and stronger hair, then make sure to check out fullyvital.com. We've come up with a 100% natural set of products to help you restore the vitality of your hair and get thicker, fuller, and stronger hair. So make sure to check out fullyvital.com and use code anti-aging-hacks for 15% off your order. Are you enjoying the videos that we're putting out? Then make sure to hit the subscribe button down below so you can get notified when we release new episodes. Our goal on this channel is to help you look and feel younger and live your most adventurous life. So make sure to subscribe down below so you can get notified when we release new episodes. With that said, let's get right onto the show. Hello and welcome back to the Anti-Aging Hacks podcast. Today, my guest is Davide Vigano, who's the co-founder and CEO of Sensoria Health, the leading developer of remote patient monitoring and artificial intelligence smart garment wearing solutions. Under his leadership, the Sensoria multidisciplinary team is at the forefront of innovation, and it has envisioned, designed, developed, patented, and commercialized some of the very first sensor-infused footwear, apparel, and accessories now available around the world. Davide is a former Microsoft executive with over 30 years of R&D, sales, marketing, and product management experience. He recently served as general manager of the Health Solutions Group, where he was in charge of both marketing and product strategy for Health Vault and the Amalga product line. With that said, Davide, welcome to the Anti-Aging Hacks podcast.
Thank you, Faraz. Thank you for having me.
So you've got a very interesting history with Microsoft, and we were just talking about how I worked in the Microsoft channel as well many, many years ago, and you've since moved on to start a company that has sensors with garments, and that's really fascinating. So give us your background for the listeners, and then how you got into this company that you're at, Sensoria.
That's a fun question actually for us, because I joined Microsoft many years ago, and at that time I was actually studying at a small university in Italy, and our university could not afford mainframe computers, and so the only thing we could afford was a couple of IBM personal computers, which were extremely expensive, very bulky, and not very powerful at that time. But what attracted me to Microsoft was the MS-DOS, right? At that time, MS stood for, you probably remember, Microsoft, right? So I looked it up. There was no internet at that time. It took me a while. And I managed to get an internship in Redmond.
Wow.
And that was 1987.
That's great.
So I'm dating myself, right? So when you talk about aging hacks, I'm very interested as well. So the vision of Sensoria, jokes aside, is the same type of transition from bulky and extremely expensive and less than powerful computing into what we call transparent computing. You and I didn't know each other before this call, but we probably did the same thing this morning, right? We woke up, we took a shower, we put our clothes on. So wouldn't it be nice to basically create a platform that allows garments and footwear to be digitally transformed, connect to the internet like an IoT device, and become wearable computers? So our vision is the garment is the next computer.
And that's a really fascinating thing to talk about, because it is coming, right? Our phones, we are addicted to our phones. They're connected to our hands, basically, all day, every day, either in the pocket or the hand. So that device has become an extension of the human, but also the clothes that we wear are also very important, because you can't measure everything with the phone, especially your form, how you're walking, gait, pressure, as we're going to talk about with some of the devices you have or some of the garments that you have. And so it's really a unique opportunity, I think, for you guys, which I'm glad you started this. So let's dive right in. One of the things you're doing, let's talk about some of the products or the garment types that you've developed, and then I have some more follow-on questions.
Sure, absolutely. But you're absolutely right. I mean, isn't it kind of funny that our cars have all the systems integrated for maintenance and prevention. And we don't have pretty much anything for the human body, right? So wouldn't it be nice to know that I'm about to fall instead of just dispatching an ambulance once I'm on the ground, if I'm lucky, right? So everything that we build is related to collecting biometric data that we, as human beings, create and generate every day during our normal life, but we're not collecting. Wearable devices like smartwatches are collecting some data right now, which is extremely helpful. But the watch is limited by the fact that it is positioned on the wrist. And the wrist is a great position for some data sets and is a terrible, not ideal position for others. Gait, like you mentioned, which is the science of human locomotion, is one great example of that. The Germans and the Italians defined the gait as a science in the mid 1600s. Wow. It's 2022 and we can barely count steps, right? I mean, there is more, I think there is more to that that we can collect and potentially drive this data to someone that knows more than we do to help us build those predictive analytics type of algorithms that could potentially help us reduce the risk of falls. And that's one example of some of our products. We have a sock, let me show it to you here, that we have developed. It looks like a normal sock. It's soft and washable, but it is actually a computer.
Yeah.
So the microcomputer that you see here is a square inch in size, and it comes with a full 9-axis IMU for the geeky ones listening to this podcast. This is the same inertial platform that airplanes use when they fly in the clouds. So we have a gyroscope, an accelerometer, and a magnetometer inside this little thing, this little button.
It's tiny, yeah.
At the back, you see the golden dots, hopefully.
Yep.
And those allow us to actually collect data from the plantar area, from the bottom of the foot, where we have textile pressure sensors embedded into the textile.
Yeah.
So now we can...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so we can see the movement of the foot in space. So think about after a stroke as an example for rehabilitation purposes. One part of the body is rigid and not moving in the same way. How do we bring it back to as much as possible so that, again, we reduce the risk of fall? But we can collect real data that doctors actually study when they go to school, to med school, and provide this data to them, like step time variability, balance, center of mass. Those are the data sets, the deep novel data sets that we can generate, and we can drive this data to a clinician so they can help us either prescribe drugs or prescribe rehab or remotely monitor people that are at high risk of falls. In the case of a new product that we just announced in San Diego called NeurOptrek, we're actually partnering with Dr. Padula, William Padula. He's one of the leading scientists of optometry, and he has developed a system using our sock to prescribe prism lenses and reduce the risk of falls with people with traumatic brain injury, but also the aging population in general.
Yeah, that's great. So for folks that are listening on the podcast and not watching on YouTube, Davide just held up the sock that has all the pressure sensors at the bottom of the foot, and they all connect to the sensor, which is above the ankle. And so basically, that's not going to be in the way of anything that you're doing. It's out of the way. And it's measuring all of your locomotion, all the points at the bottom of the foot to see where you're pressing down and how your balance is, which is a fantastic way of doing it. And of course, we know that over the age of 65, falls are a huge concern, right? And also people that fall, there's a huge risk of them with having mortality within the next year. It's, I think, 40 to 50% of the people that fall and maybe have a hip fracture can die in the next year. So it's a huge thing. And so you're partnering with Dr. William Padula, who has created this NeurOptrek thing. So let's talk about how would somebody, let's say that somebody's at risk for falls, right? How would they even wear the system? How would they get diagnosed by a practitioner or a doctor? How would that whole thing work?
In the case of NeurOptrek, the system is actually used by an optometrist in the office. It's very simple. The patient just wears the smart socks, and walks for less than 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And we provide data through an Android tablet application with algorithms that we have developed to the optometrists. And that data informs the diagnostic decision of the optometrist. And he or she decides basically what type of prism lenses to prescribe.
Okay, so that will help them determine that the center of mass is off and somebody's tilting to the right or forward or back or to the left, which would tell them which direction they would fall in. And so they can prescribe these prism lenses, and these lenses help you rebalance your center of gravity. Is that true?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. And I can actually also send you videos of patients using this type of technology before and after using those glasses. Mm-hmm. And it is quite amazing, the impact that they can have. This is just one of the scenarios, of course. Mm-hmm. The sock is now being used in a clinical trial sponsored by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. You probably remember Michael J. Fox as the actor of Back to the Future. Yeah. And he suffers from Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So he's helping us co-fund a clinical trial for Parkinson's patients where we're interfacing a smartwatch with the sock, and we're adding haptic motors to the sock. So we can actually not only collect the data, but also intervene, providing a vibration, a rhythmic vibration. Yeah, left and right. And that has been proven to actually be beneficial in reducing the risk of falls for Parkinson's patients. And Faraz, you're absolutely right. As you know, people that are 65 and older, 1 out of 3 fall each year in this country. For Parkinson's patients in the same age groups, you have to multiply that by 4 or by 5. So some Parkinson's patients fall multiple times a year.
Jeez.
So there are so many things that we can do by collecting the data, but also intervening and providing some type of feedback directly to the patient as well.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you is, number one, you have to get to the data, right? Which you've got through garments because they're connected to your body. You can know exactly at the foot and wherever else you create this garment for what's actually going on. Then that data has to go into some Bluetooth or a phone, and then that has to be fed into your algorithm and the data center and the data warehouse, and that has to crunch for a while and then come back and give you insights, right? So what you're saying is, in the case of Parkinson's, the loop is shortened so much that it gives you haptic feedback right then and there that you're about to fall, or so you can correct yourself before you fall.
That is correct. In near real time, as we say. Yeah, the architecture that you just walked us through is exactly right. So there is the sock with a little computer connected to it, which we call Sensoria Core, which I showed before, just for people that are not watching on YouTube. But then there is the mobile application that can run either on a smartphone or a smartwatch. And that also allows us to intervene immediately if we need to. And then there is the cloud infrastructure that allows a clinician to monitor multiple patients remotely. So think about a traffic light approach where you see patients that are color-coded green, and those are the ones that are doing potentially well in terms of the ranges of normality that the doctor has defined for them. Yeah. And then we have the yellow, color-coded yellow patients, which we have brought back in some way to normality. And then we have the color-coded red, where we're just basically attracting the attention of the clinician because those need help, right? So, so the data for those patients is outside those ranges of risk or normality, if you will.
I see. Okay, so for just normal adults, and I don't want to say normal or not normal, but adults that don't have Parkinson's, for example, or any other neurological condition that could cause a disturbance in balance, for example, how would they even they're at risk because they're over 65, and we know that with aging, these things change, right? Your center of balance changes. And so how can somebody proactively, or even noticing that they're a little bit off balance, how can they go to a physician or a doctor or a therapist and have the NeurOptrek assessment done and get some of these glasses?
So for people that are at high risk of falls, even if, like you said, if they don't suffer from neurological conditions, they can get in contact with Dr. William Padula, or with Sensoria, and we can help them connect them to the right clinician. We're also working on a self-administered type of solution that will help people specifically perform preventive exercises in terms of reducing the risk of falls. We call this Sensoria Walk, and it will be available in the next couple of months.
Ah, very cool. So your therapist then can prescribe you or work with you during your sessions to do these exercises, which will ultimately help you reduce the risk of falls.
That is exactly right. So
that's fantastic.
Specific balance exercises that a physical therapist would usually monitor. We can monitor them together with the physical therapist, or help people just basically self-manage their journey, right? Their rehab journey, and reduce risk of falls.
Yeah. And step one of that is going to be understanding where you're at individually. So you'll need the socks to see how you're loading your foot and where your balance might be. And then the therapist can intervene and say, okay, do these exercises over the next 4 weeks, come back, let's look at it again. And the reason I think about this is because I'm part of a longevity study at the BLSA in Baltimore, which is funded by the National Institutes of Aging. And every 4 years you go there and they measure like 10,000 biomarkers or something and put you through a bunch of devices and machines. And one of them is balance and gait, or two of them, balance and gait separately. But they have you stand on one foot, right? And for me, it was no problem for 30 seconds. They said, do it. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's easy. They said, come back in 15 years, it will not be easy. And I go, really? And I say, after 60, or they told me after 60, it's much, much harder to balance on one foot for 30 seconds. And so I think about this not only for myself, but also for my parents. And now that you brought that up, hopefully in 2 months, I can text you, call you, or find out what these preventative exercises are and get these socks from my parents so we can prevent this. I don't want them falling, really. And I don't want to fall either, but I'm more concerned about them at this point than myself. So thanks for doing this. I would assume that, man, the possibilities could be endless for this. If you're tracking me with a garment, which is, on my body or on my foot, then, and you're also able to provide feedback, like what is it, the haptic feedback, like little buzz or vibration. Holy moly, like, what else could you do? Like even normal people that have pronation, or even, people that don't have a good stride walking or running, this would be a great tool for them to learn how to fix things and correct things even earlier on in life.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we can create new biomarkers, and we can collect data related to gait and balance biomarkers multiple times a day. You're part of the study, and I think it's fantastic, but the researchers have limited time with you when they collect this data, and they need specific tools to do that, like stabilometric platforms for balance, as an example, right? Those are expensive tools. So think about the sock as a gait lab in a sock, right? So we don't need those expensive tools. Plus, we can extend the reach of the clinician or the researcher to more healthy people in the community and at home, so we can collect more relevant data. I mean, it's the difference between YouTube or, YouTube, you have the full video there, right? Compared to a few years ago when we had a fading black and white Xerox image of what we're doing. That's not the same thing.
Right, totally.
So yeah, what we're trying to do is really have the flow of the data that is long enough, meaningful enough, because the boundary between healthy individuals and people that are not healthy is blurring. So there is like you said, the normal aging healthy population. From time to time, we all become patients, and then hopefully we look forward to going back to being very healthy. But the point is that boundary gets crossed every day by each one of us, unfortunately, right? So when do we cross that? Can we collect data that can help a clinician diagnose potentially the onset of Parkinson's, the onset of Alzheimer, the onset of multiple sclerosis, the onset of high-risk conditions that could lead to a fall? I mean, that is what brings us to the office every day, right? I mean, if we can reduce 5% of falls, that would be the definition of success, right? We will never be able to reduce all falls, right? But just reducing 5% could be meaningful, not only to people, but even to the taxpayer. And because like you said, this is such a huge problem, not just in the US, but around the world, that it could be really, really a good thing.
I believe, and I may be wrong, but I believe that if you start doing exercises, your body's very smart. If you start working out or doing exercises specifically about your balance, then it should come back. Because if, let's say, a 65-year-old and over person can't stand on one foot for 30 seconds, but if they practice it every day, I assume they'll get there in a few months. And so if this is something that you can do proactively, measure, do it proactively, or even after the fact, keep improving. And then, like you said, if this becomes even a proactive way of figuring out if you have nerve conditions, that would be, wow, what a use case. Yeah. And then also, I think you're in the right industry, because as the longevity is coming, there's going to be a lot more people over 65, over 75 in this country than there are now and all over the world. And so there will be need for solutions for these people to live a normal and healthy life. So that's really cool. Okay, so we talked about the smart socks, which you're doing a lot of cool things with, including preventing falls, which are very, very important especially for people over 65 and people with neurological conditions. What else? You've got a knee brace as well?
Yeah, think of Sensoria as a platform where we're basically leveraging some of these components for multiple type of devices. So you talked about longevity. Most of us, we have been more active than our parents in our life, right? Practicing sports and running or playing tennis or even impact sports like football. The risk of having a knee replacement or a hip replacement is very high for us, because the longevity has, of course, a positive impact on the duration of our lives. But of course, it forces us to think about replacement of some of these components, right?
Yeah, totally.
Or that we have been overusing. So the same Sensoria core device that I showed you, we're actually going to announce at ACRM next week in Chicago, can be leveraged as part of the rehabilitation process using a knee brace. So for people, having an ACL reconstruction or a total knee arthroplasty, which means they need to replace their knee, they can just purchase a normal knee brace. The knee brace will be connected to the same inertial platforms that I just showed you, one at the top of the knee and the other one at the bottom of the knee. We will have specific applications that will be available by the end of the year for the same type of scenario, which is how do we help people during their patient journey and doing their rehab correctly? How many exercises, how many repetitions for each exercise? And we will provide this data not only to the patient, but potentially, if the patient agrees, of course, to their physical therapist.
Yeah.
So the physical therapist can also help them remotely.
Yeah. Doing physical therapy correctly is such a huge thing. I think a lot of folks, or many folks, don't do it perfectly, and therefore the body doesn't come back to what it could be.
Exactly. I mean, compliance or adherence is a big issue. And then, like you said, we think we're doing one thing and we are doing something different.
Right.
We don't. That's why people have personal trainers and coaches and physical therapists, right? That's necessary. They can see us. We cannot see ourselves. And so that's the challenge. But even for people on a wheelchair, we have actually developed, together with Rancho Research Institute, we have developed a system that actually helps people on wheelchairs reduce the risk of ulceration. Think of that as a Fitbit for wheelchair users.
Okay.
Like you said, it's really hard for people to remember to do their exercises.
Right.
And that is basically a textile pressure sensor infused insert that sits between the wheelchair seat and their cushion. And we have, again, a very specific mobile application for the wheelchair user that walks them through how many times a day they need to do pressure relief exercises.
Because if they sit on that same position all day long, then they will develop ulcers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And for us, our body has not been designed to sit on a wheelchair for years, right? So,
right.
So ideally every hour, people in a wheelchair should actually do specific pressure relief exercises like left lean, right lean, forward lean, so that the blood circulates more freely and they reduce the risk of ulceration.
So they're not actually getting off the wheelchair. They're
No,
just doing it leaning
no.
while on the
Yeah,
wheelchair.
that's
They're just
exactly right.
shifting the weight under
That's
them.
exactly right. So I gave you
Okay.
just three examples.
Yeah.
The wheelchair product, which we call Sensoria Mat,
Mm-hmm.
and people can find more information on that on sensoriamat.com.
Mm-hmm.
The knee brace, the sock, they're all tools that we can use to collect data and provide actionable information to the user,
Mm-hmm.
so that we reduce the risk of ulceration, the risk of an incorrect rehabilitation, and therefore potential complications and risk of falls. So we're trying to reduce the risk,
Mm-hmm.
preventing those causes that actually create problems for us, right?
Yeah.
So
This is really cool because I talk to a lot of longevity and anti-aging experts and futurists that are predicting what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. And one of those predictions is that every morning you wake up and your mirror actually tells you your health status. It tells you if your skin's looking droopy, if something's going on. And this could be just another metric on your list of metrics in your health to say, hey, blood pressure is good, your glucose is good this morning, your cortisol levels are good, and by the way, you're standing upright, so good job, right? You're not leaning right, walking off, your gait is good. Man, yeah, and this is interesting, and I'm curious to see how far this goes because the possibilities are endless, especially when you bring, because everybody's trying to create that one platform, or will be trying to create that one platform where you get all your data in one kind of dashboard. And so I assume you have a software and people can connect to your software as well.
yeah, we've built a full SDK, we call it. We call it
Mm-hmm.
Sensoria Developer Kit because it's not just software. We have hardware and soft hardware
Okay, yeah,
inside
yeah,
inside
correct.
the SDK. But yeah, we can. You're absolutely right. I mean, your imagination is the limit
Right.
of what we could potentially do with this technology. Think about collecting simple data like body weight.
Mm-hmm.
A very sharp change in body weight, either losing weight or gaining weight. It's a critical indicator, right? Losing weight could be cancer. Gaining weight could be congested heart failure, right? So doctors want to know, would want to know this data,
Yeah.
and they can help us if they knew they could actually potentially help us. But right now we don't know, and
Right.
so we cannot provide the data to people that can help us because we simply don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So how we want to enable a knowledge-driven future for people like us, selfishly, that are aging like everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how we grew up with the internet and Excel and other tools. Why shouldn't we use this quantified data to help us age better?
Yeah, totally. And with aging, your body starts to change, your vision changes, as you know, your sense of balance changes. And so things that you can do to help guide you in your normal day-to-day life, I think they're so key. And we have to do them because right now we have no solution. We have no other solution. You can't take a pill and walk upright again, right? It just doesn't happen. So I'm so glad. And I'm in this world of biohacking where I measure a lot of my metrics anyway. And so this would be something else that I would start tracking at some point. And certainly for my parents, I'm very interested in helping at least get an assessment and then some exercises for them to start doing now, so that they don't fall, right? I want to be proactive about it. You also have a boot product, correct? Tell us about that.
Yeah, that you're absolutely right. Our boot product is actually a third-party product called the FootDefender.
Mm-hmm.
For people that are watching on YouTube, you can actually see it here. It's actually a boot that has been designed by former Nike
Mm-hmm.
designers.
So stylish. Yeah.
Yeah, because for some of these devices, of course, people don't want to be seen wearing them, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there are many medical devices end up being a stigma.
Yeah.
Uh, and we don't want the conversation to be about our frailty, right? So
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants that.
Right.
So they designed a boot that is not only functional,
Mm-hmm.
but is also beautiful. It looks like a after skiing boot in
Yeah,
the
for
Alps,
sure.
right?
For sure.
So it's not only beautiful, but is also smart. So as you can see here, we have our Sensoria core device
Mm-hmm.
with a different type of enclosure here.
Mm-hmm.
There is no on and off button. As long as you snap it to the boot,
Mm-hmm.
it collects data about activity and compliance. This boot has been designed for people with diabetic foot ulcerations.
Mm-hmm.
Those lead to amputations, unfortunately, very often in this country still. Just to give you an idea of the cost for the US government, it's $17.5 billion a year.
Wow.
Just on amputation. There is an amputation every 20 seconds due to diabetes.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Due to diabetes. Well, I know diabetes is a big problem everywhere, but certainly in America. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a problem of epidemic proportions that is getting worse, not getting better.
Right.
And nobody talks about it. Right. So we can actually help reduce the risk of amputations by using this boot. We have an NIH-funded research clinical trial with USC, Keck School of Medicine in Los Angeles, and with Baylor College of Medicine in Texas. And they're using this Defender powered by Sensoria boot to collect data that even the researchers, let alone the clinicians, simply don't have yet.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Clinicians cannot help us unless they know, is the patient wearing it? I mean, or not, right?
So the I guess the way that it works, it would be similar to the mat, where it's tracking where your pressure is, and you want to take the pressure off the ulcer so that it can heal.
It's even simpler than that. The doctor actually prescribes the boot with a specific type of insole that actually offloads that area of the foot.
Okay.
As long as the patient is wearing the boot during the day, the chances of healing are extremely high. The problem with this patient population is that diabetic foot is always comes with peripheral neuropathy. Peripheral neuropathy means the nerves are damaged. So patients that suffer from diabetes don't feel the pain in the same way that you and I feel it. Dr. David Armstrong calls it the gift of pain. They don't have the gift of pain, and therefore they tend to underestimate the risk of removing the boot because they don't feel anything. So they think they're okay. They're not okay. They need to wear the boot so that the blood can circulate in that area. Some of these ulcers are, they look like battle wounds. They're very, very serious conditions that need to be treated. And otherwise, they lead to an amputation. And after an amputation, what people don't realize, life expectancy of a patient is 5 years, same as cancer. So it's a very serious condition that needs to be treated.
Okay, so what you're doing is your company. Well, thanks for doing that, by the way. You're helping the world, moving it to a better place and giving back to life. So I appreciate this. So not to recap, but I guess in terms of how you're providing solutions to the market, you've got the software side of things on the back end. You've got some products that you are developing in terms of garments and socks, for example, and mats. And then you're also partnering and licensing your technology to other people that want to make the boot, for example, or something else, where you go partner with them and you can also meet additional demands the market might have, correct?
You're absolutely right. Think of an Intel inside of garments.
Intel inside. I don't think young folks would understand what that means, but that's pretty cool.
When people look at their laptop, even today, they probably see a small logo that says Intel inside, right? So think about your socks or your boots having a Sensoria logo saying Sensoria inside. Like you said, your imagination is the limit, right? So we cannot in any way address all these challenges by ourselves. So we need to work with academic institutions. We need to work with the developers of these products and help them connect these products to the internet so that the data flows to the researchers and the clinicians. And that's what we do.
Okay, we're coming up on time, so I want to be respectful of your time, but a couple of more questions. Is this all the data warehouse that you have, the data that's going back into your databases and warehouses? Does that need some kind of an AI and learning algorithm so that you need, 10,000 people on it or 100,000 people and it keeps getting better? Or is it pretty simple? You're like, okay, here's the different things that can go wrong with maybe your balance. And if you're this way or that way, then we can fix it. Or do you need big data?
No, great question. So first of all, our cloud infrastructure engine is built on Microsoft Azure. So it's HIPAA compliant. It's privacy respectful to us that we do not and will never sell the data. This is part of our mission and vision and our values. The data is extremely valuable, like you said, for us, because if the quality of the data is right, we don't need hundreds of thousands of data sets. We only need a few hundred data sets to train algorithms. It's, garbage in, garbage out, right? If the quality of the data is good, just a few data sets can actually inform very smart artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms that can help us. If the data is not good, then of course it will take more and more time to remove the let's say low quality data sets and therefore retrain the algorithms.
Got it.
But that's why we work very closely with clinicians. We want to make sure that we have supervision, not just technical supervision, but clinical supervision, so that they tell us these are the right data sets that can help and inform the algorithms. It is a multidisciplinary problem in multiple ways. We need more sensors. The sensors that the industry is providing are usually designed for this type of devices.
Right.
They're hard. You know, the phone and the smartwatch, you know, we cannot put hard sensors under the plantar area of the foot for obvious reasons, right? So we need academic institutions and researchers to help us develop temperature sensors, humidity sensors, weight and balance sensors. So all these sensors should be wearable and washable. We cannot do this by ourselves. It's a new industry.
Yeah, sensors is going to be huge, right? It's like one of the next big frontiers that we're chasing, and they're going to be everywhere. And there's Internet of Things that we've been talking about for a couple of decades now. And I think that we're at least in the initial stages of having implementations that are focusing on that. Where do you see this industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, Davide?
Oh, wow. That's really hard to answer. We think there will be a very meaningful transformation of some of the dumb products that we wear every day into smart products that remove the necessity or the burden of us collecting this data manually, which sounds like you're doing every day, but not everybody has the same discipline. And also we make mistakes, right? Everything that has a manual process involved is prone to those errors. So I think the whole industry, very much like the automotive industry, the textile, garment, footwear industry, will move towards that type of digital transformation. They need the help. They need all the help they can get because their core competencies they're not yours and mine, right? They don't understand software. They've never needed to. They understand design and materials and distribution and fashion. They don't understand the geeky stuff that we've been talking about for the last few minutes here. So anyway, that's what I see. We need some type of platform that makes it easier for the industry to bridge that gap.
Okay. I guess last question. There are some people in the health and wellness folks industry, I should say, that are hesitant about using Bluetooth on their devices, especially if it's on all the time, because we don't know. We've never had Bluetooth so close to our skin, to our cells, ever in the history. And people talk about phones not keeping it in your pockets, not having it next to your ear. So, and I know this is hard to do because the moment you design something that you have to plug in to maybe like store some data on the device and then you have to plug in to download it, people are not going to do it. Let's be honest, like it's very, very small percentage of people that are going to actually plug it in every night and download the data. So there is a little bit of a challenge there because you want compliance. Compliance is your number one goal. And also for the folks that are maybe interested in not having Bluetooth, that's a challenge because then they'll have to do it all and that might not be so good for compliance. So anyway, have you heard that before and any thoughts on that frontier?
Yeah, no, I definitely have heard that before. There's a trade-off here. I mean, Bluetooth has made substantial progress on being more, let's say, safe. And the Bluetooth Smart, the new version, the Bluetooth 5, clearly is safer than other implementations. And the fact that now we have a lot of data from people that wear earbuds most of the day tells us that we're going in the right direction there. It's very, let's say, encouraging. Yeah. Like you said, asking people to store the data locally and then download it would make the data basically unavailable. Let's face it, right? I use an analogy, which is how many people used to balance their checkbook before online banking and online brokerage, right? I wasn't one of them. It was just entering my own financial transactions. Nobody wants to do that. I mean, and nobody wants to enter their own healthcare transactions, right? So the vision is really to have the patient, us, but even the healthy aging person in charge of making the right decisions for himself or herself. But in order to do that, we need to have access to the data, to the images. Think about mammography data. Think about X-ray data in a simple place, easy to access when we need it, regardless of where we are. We may be Minnesota or Florida, right? But we still need that data to help us make informed decisions about our own health and healthcare.
Yeah, totally.
And it's kind of frustrating that we're not there yet. I don't have that data available at my fingertips, as we used to say. And it's 2022, and I don't see why. There are no technical reasons why I shouldn't be able to have that, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, fantastic. This has been a great interview, Davide. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find Sensoria and find you or more research about your technology?
They can reach us at info@sensoriainc.com, and they can actually learn more about our solutions and our SDK at sensoriahealth.com and sensoria.io.com.
Got it. Okay, easy enough. Those three. Just go there if you have questions, look up the devices, look up what they're doing. You can also read the science. And if this makes sense to you, then definitely get it and improve your health and live a long life. So thank you very much for coming on the Anti-Aging Hacks Show.
Thank you, Faraz. Thank you for having me.